Welcome to another episode of the Mr. Therapist and the Counselor Podcast. Jesse O.
Today we are going to talk about burnout.
Yes, we are. And I want to remind you guys, if you like the show, please subscribe. Please share the show if you find value from it as well. You ready to get into this?
Yes. Let's do it right now.
Let's do
to
it.
those that are valuable and not so valuable. Here we go.
Jesse, burnout. Talking about burnout.
We're jumping right into it. I'm not ready to do this at this point
You
in
need
time.
to warm up.
I wanted to warm up and talk about a couple different things. So one thing I want to talk about is somebody that I really, truly admire that's been a part of the show for a few episodes now.
Yes.
His name is Dave Bautista.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed, because most people don't watch this on video, but Dave Bautista, who is Drax from the Guardians of the Galaxy, he's going to be somewhat, I don't want to call him a mascot because he's so much more than that.
He's in Uber too, right? Like the movie Uber?
Stuber.
Stuber, yeah.
He does Uber driving as well, along as being
That was
the
probably the
acclaimed
best
actor.
movie he's
He was in Dune, which
just
should have won
kidding.
Academy Award for Best Picture. There's no doubt about that in
You
my
hear that, buddy?
eyes.
We're a fan of yours.
So Dave Bautista, in his blue Tista outfit from his WWE wrestling days, will be joining us from here on out, somewhat being kind of like the wind beneath my wings when I need it. So,
Yeah, he's very supportive.
and also something that's followed us since the first episode. Manny has brought back his purple pants, and boy, was I excited! Brandon, who's filming us today, who's our third person in crime here, he pointed out how fantastic these pants are. They are
They're very like Saul Goodman, you know.
It's all good, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I really enjoy the purple pants. I think
Thank
it's
you.
hashtag purple pants. You can start trending that at any point in time. It's gonna be just a huge influence. Purple pants.
I do it for the people, man.
Yeah, you do. Those purple pants do it for the people.
Yeah.
I bet you they do. So, so today, the topic of the podcast today, was there anything that you want to get out? I talked a lot right now about purple pants and blue Batista. Is there any colors that you want to talk about that are important this week?
You know what? I'm gonna take it this week. Yeah. Thanks for that introduction.
So today I wanted to talk about something that was inspired by a guest that we had recently on the Mr. Therapist and the Counselor podcast. When we brought in Danae in here, she had brought up the idea of, we talked about burnout. We talked about how the mental health system is flawed. And after we recorded that podcast, man, it really it opened up a lot of things for me. It struck a nerve with me on how much burnout is so big in our field. And it's something that we ask, we talk about self-care a lot with our clients, but how often we don't, I'll speak for myself and some of the peers I've worked with, how we don't often we don't really carry the flag with that. We suggest it, and a lot of times we just don't even know how to practice it. So I wanted to ask you just about, we could talk about burn. I think the question that I initially wanted to ask you was has there a point in time when you've been burned out in your position, in your field, as a therapist? And I want you to, talk about your experiences dealing with burnout. What does burnout feel like?
Sure. Yeah. No, I think it's different for everybody. But I mean, I think we're in an industry where burnout is high, right? We were just talking about the two people we had on our show don't practice anymore.
Yeah, they're currently out of the field.
Yeah.
And I mean, for somewhat, I don't want to say exactly the same reasons, but and then
but it makes you wonder, right? And then we know many other people as well who, like, especially in the treatment world, where it's where I come from, it's where you're currently in. It's like there's a lot of turnover, and it's agencies, it's treatment centers, even in private practice. Yeah, I experience burnout all the time. The question was, what does it look like?
I really wanted to know about your own personal experience. We mentioned some peers, and before we started recording, I brought up different peers that I know that have stepped out of the field. The link between that, as I think about addiction treatment, I think about how those programs are set up and how, you'd mentioned turnover. there is this sense, because I still work in the field, that the suggestion is made that, hey, we want you to take care of yourself. It's something I mentioned to our to Danae that was here not too long ago, was that like, and maybe it's just me, but like I've been almost designed in these programs that I could take a day off, but it's because we are so involved with our clients and their treatment plan and helping them improve and grow. Like it's so challenging to, I don't want to say separate, because I think I mentioned this before in an earlier podcast. Like when I leave on Fridays from my current profession, like I can put a lid on it. I'm okay. But when you're in it, it's almost designed to go. Don't stop. We're working with people that are struggling with maybe things that are, I don't want to say more, are just in the now, in that moment in time. So I wanted to ask you, just like for you, like what does burnout look for you? Have you experienced burnout personally?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, it looks like I stopped caring, I think.
So that's a key component right there for burnout for you, is you just don't care as much.
Yeah, and it's not like I don't care. I do care, but caring gets harder, and so it gets tougher. It's almost like I start getting really pessimistic, negative, complaining about the work that I'm doing or the burden that I feel coming from it. I start just like turning from this compassionate, empathetic therapist to this stressed out person who has to help people versus, I get to be in the room with somebody, and I start losing the appreciation for conversations and for the benefit that they can give people. So that's exactly what it looks like for me. And I've experienced it a lot of times in treatment, and even outside of when I was working outside of treatment in private practice, I experienced it as well.
Is that part of the reason why you do only private practice right now? Yeah. And for anybody that is still very new to this podcast, like what is private practice? And explain just a little bit in detail. What's the difference between like private practice and working for
an agency?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. So like, when I was in an agency or into treatment center, you get clients who you're assigned to see, and you're supposed to be seeing X amount of clients a week. And you're supposed to help fight for them to get coverage for insurance and be on top of your notes and fight with the insurance companies to try to make sure that they stay in treatment. And post that, getting out of that, I started my private practice, and that's a little bit different because you get a mix of private pay clients. You can take insurance if you want. I don't. And you can kind of manage your schedule a little bit, right? Like pick and choose like when you're available, when you're not available. But is it a reason why I left? I don't think so. I think I've always had the vision of wanting to do my own thing. But I think it would have probably been like at some point. I think it's the reason why I remember not wanting to work in addiction for a while. So maybe that was a reason, because I felt burnt out with it. I felt like I was having the same conversations. I was like seeing the same people. I just felt like it was the same thing, right? Yeah. And I just kind of got tired of it. But yeah.
So there was also a limitation for you in that. Would you say that with addiction, and primarily would you? I guess there's so many different clients that addiction treatment would not have, obviously, right? You're not going to have a couple in, you're maybe, I mean,
in addiction, you can have couples, families. But, I was doing family work.
But not like at a program, right? You would have to, or I guess you would do, okay.
I was
with a family
directing
program.
the family program, but not, it wasn't a big part of, like, it was a little aspect of the treatment, right? Yeah. Mainly you're seeing individual clients struggling with addiction, but yeah, it's an aspect of it.
But for you, it was more of a desire to just to be more independent.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really anything that had to do with the program.
Not
like
directly.
Life, kind of.
Not directly. But but who's to say, right? If working in treatment was very balanced, and if they like helped you really take your mental health seriously, and you know, made you, I know some people who their work makes them take a sabbatical like every 5 years, you know, and so, but if they had maybe I wouldn't have left. I don't know, right? I can't say for sure. But I don't think I left for that reason. But I still get burnt out even now. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like I've escaped burnout because I don't work in treatment anymore.
We can identify patterns, lack of coping skills that somebody has that potentially is burning out, like, or stressed out or has anxiety. For you, self-reflection, are you one to go, hey, I feel like I'm burned out right now? Or do you have to have people point that out to you? Because I think that's something I see. Some people, when I'm working side by side with clinicians, occasionally people will ask me, like, do you feel like you're burned out? And back to my ego, as you'll hear this brought up in so many episodes, is like, no, I'm not burned out. I'm good. Like, I'm okay. Like, I'm just, I don't know. I'll just refer to almost just being tired or whatever excuse. Like,
people tell you that? That's crazy.
Yeah, they'll get a sense, and it's probably certain signals that I'm putting out there. Maybe
What does it look like for you?
What does burnout look like to me? Kind of some of the things that you said, taking things for granted. I know with like sarcasm, I've always practiced not being cynical, because I think there's a big difference between cynical and being sarcastic. I use a lot of humor, but the humor becomes sharper and sharper, and to where it's, you know, it starts to get a little bit ugly. So maybe it is almost falling on cynical.
I start rolling my eyes sometimes, like you know. If I gotta see, like, say back to back, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, so that'll be like a sign for me of like, oh man, why are you rolling your eyes? Like, these are your clients.
I don't think I'm a mouth breather, but I had a colleague tell me one time, every time I walked by their office, I would do this big deep sigh.
You're like
right?
a dragon, bro.
Yeah, fire breathing for sure. So yeah, I would have these big deep sighs, and I wouldn't even notice it. I had one person in the office one time, like, they heard me do that, and they're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "What? Are you okay? I just heard that big."
You really
deep
do that,
breath. And I was like, "Holy shit!" And I asked this person. I said, "Listen," I was like, "Can you just kind of call me out? Will you call me out on that?" And they're like, "I don't want to give you." I was like, "Listen, no, I've heard this from multiple people. Like, this is my attempt at pay attention. Like, it's kind of my cry for help. Is this?" His deep sigh. So so those things. And here's the thing, once again, I don't think I start to even identify the burnout. I do need people to make that suggestion for me. And initially, like I said, I'll do the pushback because I'm so defensive and protective of like whatever of my position, or maybe people will think that I'm not strong enough because I'm showing burnout. But
you know, it's funny. I actually just made an appointment with my therapist because I felt the need. Like I like noticed just how I was feeling and like just my moods. And so I, like a week ago, like, I was like, hey, like, can I get back in? So I think in private practice, I have to be more accountable to my emotions and where I'm at emotionally. And so the cool thing about the liberty of my practice is I can kind of move around as I want to. And so like, I'll have the opportunity to check in with myself, right? It's not like someone's telling me, go see these clients. So yeah, I just made an appointment. And then in terms of who checks me on my burnout, no one directly, but sometimes my wife, she'll be like, hey, my therapist's name is Corey. Do you go see Corey again? And I'm like, oh, damn, why is she saying that?
So what is your response when she does say that?
I'll think about it. I'll be like, I don't know, maybe you're right, you know, because I'll be dumping on her or whatever, you know, and I'll start noticing that she maybe she's like, all right, like I can't take it anymore.
Enough is enough.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's I think when I'm in private practice, I have the responsibility to recognize that, you know.
Well, maybe because you've been now designed, because you are your own boss in a lot of ways. You've had to take that responsibility. But I admire that you have that. You notice that within yourself, because I still, a lot of times, I still do not.
I'm very emotional though, so like, you know, it's not that hard to like for me to notice it. Like I'll cry easily, or I'll like, you know, I'll get so stressed out that I'll start like, I'll cry on the way to work sometimes, and I'm like, damn. So I mean, it's not like it's very repressed, you know what I mean? It's when I'm there, like the signs go off. It's like something's not right with me, like and so I don't know. Do you feel like you can kind of push it down a little bit more, or?
Here's the thing. I think I'm extremely emotional.
Yeah.
You know that Cole saying like, don't take things personally.
Yeah,
I take
yeah.
everything personally.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
life is personal.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
I just can't. I do. And that's another thing where I'm flawed at. But no, I think I'm very emotional.
Yeah.
I guess is being emotional but in touch with your emotions the same thing?
No, it's
It's
not.
not,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You're right. I would say I'm in touch with my emotions.
And maybe that's where I'm not.
And I am emotional at the
Okay.
same time. Yeah. Yeah, but if when you're emotional, because I feel that when you said that, I felt that. Like I'm like, fuck yeah, like I'm emotional too, and it almost feels like a little thing you get from anybody can be a little jab at you, at your emotion system, your heart, your whatever. You take that personally, whether it's someone, maybe you planned for this amazing content to present it in group and it kind of flopped, right? It kind of, that's a jab at you, or you try to connect with a client and it just didn't go well. Like that's a jab at you. So us emotional people, I feel like, yeah, we got to be on top of that, because we get these little cuts throughout the day. It's gonna add up.
I think about our colleagues, and I look at my like self like in the field, as I've worked like probably like 10 or so years in this industry now, and I almost feel like there comes a point in time where I just, you mentioned the clients being repetitive, and there is that idea is it does become somewhat of a repeat. I mean, I work in the program where it's 30 days and we get a reset with new people. But it helps me part of it because I see patterns. Obviously I gain experience, but there is that point of just like when do I take this in a different direction?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It could be just over time, like I'm becoming more and more worn down from the industry itself. But yeah, I think burnout is just something that it's acknowledged. I don't know. I guess maybe I could ask you is like how could I start to recognize more signs, or how can I
had a very practical answer for that.
Yeah.
Meditate.
Yeah.
I think I've been doing it for the past couple weeks now. I'm always on and off of it, but I feel like when I'm meditating, I'm more aware of like myself and the shit that's happening around me. Also, like you said, you have people who like call you out.
Yeah.
Like maybe there's people that you trust that you're like, all right, these are gonna be, maybe you go up to them and like, hey, like, please let me know if you start seeing me get negative or breathing through my mouth a lot or whatever, right?
Right,
Like,
whatever the pattern
whatever
is,
the patterns are, because
whatever fire comes out my mouth.
because I think that's got to be you got to have people to call that out for you, right? And I mean, I kind of like to make this a little more like tools wise. I think like, because I'm sure we're not the only ones that experience this. Mental health professionals aren't the only one that experiences it. Any listener, any person can go through burnout in their job. And so how do you become more aware of yourself and your sensations? Like, I think that's the first step, is doing that, becoming more aware of yourself, and meditation is great for that, I think.
Yeah. You mentioned meditation during the last couple of weeks. Meditation is something like I've somewhat attempted, but I really struggle with, for a person that's got that brain like
what do you struggle with?
The quiet, maybe. I'm trying to think right now.
Yeah.
We didn't like practice this question, so I don't want to give you some bullshit response here,
Yeah.
but
it's good. This is when it gets good. In the
yeah,
podcast.
right. So I think that I struggle with the calm. I think there's probably still like a lot of chaos inside of me. Like I've noticed in the last couple months, I take more deep breaths. I know box breathing is something that I'm like, I think I know how to do that. I've read plenty of like worksheets or information on how to do box breathing. It's just even like little things like that. But I think it's just potentially that I'm just always, I am so go.
Yeah.
I'm wired off anxiety and caffeine and to like I'll breathe and then I'm like boom right back at it. So I just don't know.
When you say struggle with the calm and there's a lot of chaos, do you get anxious with the quiet? Is that like?
I think I just don't allow. I've noticed more as time has went on in my life personally and professionally, like I do like the quiet. I do like the calm.
Yeah.
I don't let it settle enough. Maybe there's an expectation that something more should happen, even though I'm giving it only like a small amount of time. But I think that's probably where I struggle with.
Yeah, I almost think that's almost like a clue, right? Like
a signal.
A signal,
Okay.
right? Like if something makes you uncomfortable, it's almost like leaning into that a little more, right? Like, why is this making me so uncomfortable? Why does it quiet create chaos, or why am I uncomfortable with it? It almost like maybe a signal or a clue to push into it a little more, right?
Yeah.
And maybe meditation, because you struggle with it, maybe you should do it more.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't know. Be a cool exercise. Yeah.
I wanted to touch on too. I think that's important. Is something I refer back to the podcast we had with Danae, because the mental health system being flawed, and with our peers, a number of our peers stepping away from the field, and I don't want to just say it's because of addiction.
We don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. But I also know that I'd mentioned to you before we started was that during the pandemic, one thing that I noticed was that it was the first time people, I don't want to say the first time, but people were turning to me about how to handle the world, like the life. I had clients came in and they're dealing with these new anxieties and, maybe addiction or whatever's going on, mental health, addiction. And they're turning to me like, how do I deal with this time in our life right now in the world? And I had to respond to them like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I remember I had a younger client, and I had said, actually, it wasn't a younger client. It was, it was my wife. She's like, "You've dealt with a pandemic before, right?" And I was like, "How old do you think I am? Like 60 or something like that?"
The bird flu one, right?
No, but I was like, no, but I mean, like
the Black Plague.
I remember when clients came in with the black lung. It was a challenging time, and but she was probably just fucking with me, as she tends to do a lot. But like the idea of just like this was so new, the pandemic. I had no idea. There was no training for how to deal with this environment,
Everyone's
and it was
panicked,
And during that time, as we were kind of talking about, and Brandon mentioned too, many people have changed their careers, and it shifted the world completely. But still, people still haven't really recovered from that, and maybe there's a sense of burnout in that time of just like the things some of us had to carry and take on. And she had mentioned that too, like for us, those that worked in the mental health field, this was a whole new thing.
Yeah.
But we still had to keep going and pushing on, and now we have clients. I've read a statistic that said like 1 out of 3 clients will have some type of anxiety disorder because of that time in our life. Yeah. So do you think that played a big shift on like maybe even more burnout than we've ever seen before? Why people are getting out of the field?
I think so, because when I think of burnout, I think of like, are your needs being met, right? And usually when you're burnt out, you've given too much of yourself and you've neglected too much of yourself. And so in a time like COVID-19, I think we were considered first responders, right? Because we were essential. We had to work. We had to be there for people in a time of panic. And so if you're panicking, but you're not addressing that, or maybe you can't address it, or you don't have the time, or you just have to, whatever the reason being, if you're giving people comfort, helping them work through their anxiety and their stuff, but then yours isn't worked on, then right. And so the COVID era is a time where that was sort of magnified, right, to the fullest, because everyone is anxious. No one knows what to do.
Yeah.
But you're still having to sit there and sit with somebody and put your shit aside a little bit, right? Yeah. So I think it definitely could contribute to that burnout thing. So
regarding being burned out as well, you mentioned going back to therapy. That's something that I thought maybe we should talk about another time.
Oh, dude, I'm waiting to talk about this. Yeah, let's talk about it now.
But big thing on this podcast is that I
wrap it up. We got 3 minutes.
Then kind of saved by the bell, right? We can't save this for another episode, but I said initially, I think everybody should have a therapist, but I don't have a therapist.
Yeah.
And I have been talking about this for quite a while, and like I said, luckily we're shortly out of time here. But this is something that I've been struggling with, like, and we've talked about ego as well.
Not having one, or
not having a therapist, and like that sense of like when I start to feel better, even though maybe I don't know if I'm feeling better, maybe I am really burned out, and just the challenge in like finding a therapist and actually like taking action with that.
Yeah.
But I believe, like I said, we got that 3-minute warning. We're about to wrap it up here. So, but that's something.
You know what, dude? I'm really happy that like you're looking. I think like it's. I mean, you haven't even said about that, right? Never mind.
I have. I have been. I've been scouting the best of the best.
Yeah.
Call me, Jesse O.
Send them a referral once you find them. You know. Like,
okay.
We can rate them here on the podcast.
There we go. Yeah, I'll be like.
But yeah, no, I'm really happy you're searching or you're just even aware of it and you're doing some inner work, because I think you give a shit about the work you do with clients, and I think it's gonna just get that much better as you explore your own life in therapy. So
thanks, my dude.
Yeah, man.
So until next time, my friends.
Catch you later, dudes. I don't know. That's like Full House, I think.
Yeah. Uncle Jesse saying
purple pants.
That's good. Did you like it? Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I was happy because I was actually